Welcome back to Conscious Consumption. If you are new here, welcome. I have a very special guest and special treat for you guys today. I have Lisa Campion with me. Lisa Campion is a Reiki Master, a psychic, a podcaster since 2017, which I just learned, and an author to a few books, The Art of Psychic Reiki, Mastering Your Psychic Ability, and also energy healing with empaths. And I want to add one more because she has a new book that's going to be released very soon, which I'm very excited about. It's Sacred Reparenting. And she's also a mentor to those that are part of her apprenticeship program, in addition to a Reiki and psychic teacher and my own personal teacher. So thank you, Lisa, for joining me.
Thanks, Rena. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm super excited to be here. That new book will be out if I can ever get past chapter 8. It'll be out in late 2026.
I'm
in
love
the
it.
middle of writing it right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm very excited for this one too. Something I want to ask you about with the title of the book, I assume that you're going to be talking a little bit about the inner child, maybe?
Yeah, it's all about the inner child. That's
Oh,
it's yeah, that's the name I came up for the inner child work.
I love that.
Because I just feel like it's sort of at the bottom of like what we need to do as healers. It's kind of like where where we really need to go. If you do enough therapy and inner work, eventually you end up working with your inner child. And I'm like, let's just go straight there.
Yeah,
And super powerful work.
that's great. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to share a little something because I don't know if you know this, or the listeners definitely don't, but I want to share a little bit about how I discovered your training and just how everything kind of happened, because I think it really speaks volume to one of your mission statements that you have.
Mm.
So, 2019, I first heard you on Yolanda's podcast, Reiki Radio. So, shout out to Yolanda. And I remember you were talking about your book, The Art of Psychic Reiki. And I had immediately gone out and got it because during that time, I was going through a real, what I call a spiritual awakening, spiritual shift. I had my senses totally come alive, and I felt like part of it was familiar, part of it felt very brand new. And just reading that book, I went through in like 2 days, and I remember the words, the stories, everything I felt like I really connected to in the book. Then fast forward to earlier this year, 2025, I had left my job at 15 and a half years. It had been about, I don't know, 6 to 8 months that I had been out of work. And I had heard you on Yolanda's podcast again. You were or talking about the new book, Awakening Your Psychic Abilities. And I remember adding it to my wish list. And for those that don't know, I always have like a really long list of books. I love books. And I had it on my wish list. I don't ever remember purchasing it. And what's crazy is one of the nights I was actually in my living room area where I have my bookshelves and everything. And I have like the IKEA bookshelves where it's like, 4 high, 2 wide. I have a few of those. So there's books on one side and then books on another side. And I felt my guides kind of pulling me to the bookshelf. And that wasn't totally, uncommon because I'd often get pulled and then have a message in a book or whatever that I'd find. And I was pulled over there and I'm looking at this book and I'm like, what is that pink book on the bottom shelf? And I pull it out and it's your book. I have no memory of purchasing the book. I remember adding it to my cart. I don't remember purchasing it. And I was like, holy crap. And so I had gone and started reading it. And within a few days of that, I also had an email pop up with the training to have a talk with you about the training. And I was like, that was the other thing. And I was like, this is crazy because I'm not someone that has like a totally horrible memory. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, how did this? But it was such divine timing too, because I think it was really something that I was needing at the time because I was really feeling the pull of, developing my soul gifts in a way that I could work with others. And I had already done these different things, different healing modalities, but not really knowing how to work with others and kind of make that into something. So I really think it speaks volume to the magnetic pull that we all have too. And your mission statement that you talk about of having an army of healers, I love too, because talking with this group that we're in right now, the training group that I'm in of yours, I have never bonded with such a group of people before like I have with your group. And I think it speaks volume to what you're creating and sharing.
Oh, that's so cool. I don't know if I've ever heard that part of your story. That's super neat. I love that. And I do think one of my superpowers as a teacher is to create really beautiful groups. And like, I don't know, like it just happens. And then the groups kind of go out and do their own thing. Like they do, like they bond, they get together, they form their own, they go off and form their own group, like community that lasts forever.
Yeah.
And I don't claim any credit on that. I don't know how it's not, I'm not a part of it. It just accept the initial bringing people together. And it's so fun for me to see the groups in my classes kind of hive off and start their own thing, go their own, because it really is part of my mission to create an army of healers to go out there and save the world. And I really think we need community. I think
Yeah.
it's super duper hard to do it and painful to do it on your own,
Yeah.
and so joyful and just delicious to do it with some really good soul fam.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it makes all
But
the difference, I think.
And I love that you say community because I think that's so, so important. I think that's the one area where we all really feel that safety too, is when we feel like there's somebody else that understands, someone else that supports us, someone else that's there to listen.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's very powerful. So,
Mm.
yeah. So I wanted to ask you, because I know if you're familiar with Lisa, I'm sure you've heard a little bit about her background as far as how she grew up. She did grow up as a psychic, so she already had these gifts. And also, I want to add in their psychic medium because she has told the story of, seeing what she called the gray people and having these ghost experiences in her home, and also anytime she's gone to Airbnbs in these different places. Um, but one thing that I haven't heard Lisa share too much about, and I've always been curious about, is during the time of what I call the mundane, like before you went full-fledged into the psychic world of doing this as a profession. I know that you have a little bit of a background with martial arts, and then
Yeah.
also with your time in Japan. And so I wanted to hear a little bit about that and how that might have crossed over with your gifts. Because when I think of martial arts, I think of very much so like that intentional movement and then
Mhm.
intentional breath work. And so to me, it really ties into this, holistic world too.
Yeah, it really is. There really is a huge connection there for me. And it it sort of stems out of like a really sort of funny, geeky part of myself. And also like a spiritual part. But when I was young, when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I just really wanted to be a Jedi Knight.
I
I
love
was a
that.
Star Wars fan. I wanted to be a Jedi Knight. And I was like, how can I do that? How can the closest thing I could think about was studying martial arts. So, funny story. I grew up just outside of Boston, and this was like in the late 70s, early 80s. And it was probably the late 70s. And I was watching the TV show Kung Fu, on TV. And uh, I, I looked up in the phone book. I mean, this is how far back that was. I looked in the phone book, like, is there a Shaolin temple nearby? And there was in Chinatown. I asked my parents if I could go, and they were like, no, because Chinatown was really dangerous. It was the red light district. And they're
Oh.
like, you can't go in there. And I wasn't taking no for an answer. So all my other friends were like sneaking out of the house to like drink beer and hang with boys. And I was sneaking out of the house to go to Kung Fu lessons.
I love that so much.
And I
I love
went
that.
every Saturday for a year until my parents caught me.
Oh my God. I love
And then
that.
when I went to university, I studied Okinawan Okinawan karate, Okinawan Gushu. And I just was like such a central part of my grounding, my physicality, my like I have so many lessons about being embodied and being, in your body. Like if you're not in your body, you're gonna get hit. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like you
Yep.
can't check out in the like you have to be present. And it was so good for helping me like learn discipline. I'm a very disciplined person. Um and I feel like it was a lot about chi, like learning how to move chi, learning how to move energy. And then so I got my black belt and then moved to Japan and studied for a couple of years over there and got another black belt.
Wow.
And I just think I love Japan. I just love it. I had a very strong connection to it, and I still do. And had a really couple of powerful past life memories while I was living there. Um, and I don't know, just was, and I had a super beautiful connection with my teacher over there who was a Zen Buddhist monk and made us study Zazen meditation, which was also really cool. So it was very mystical for me, but also how I stayed grounded, sort of through the physicality of it. It made a good
Yeah.
counterpoint to all the out there psychic stuff I was doing.
And I love that you said being in body because I think of in our psychic training classes, that's something that's been so powerful and helpful for me is being in body. And when we do those grounding meditations, because like you said, like if you're spending a lot of time up here, which so many of us that are in the holistic world want to, because we're wanting to
Yeah.
open up, but if we're out of body, that's going to create a muck too. And
Yeah.
you're going to feel very scattered and everything else. And so, that's been really helpful. I have to ask you though, because something you said about being a Jedi, and I'm a Star Wars fan, so I have to know if you were to choose a kyber crystal, what color would your kyber crystal be for your sword?
Purple.
Purple. Okay. Awesome.
What's
Very
so funny?
cool.
Yeah, I always have my saying, like, what would Obi-Wan do? When I don't know what to do, I'm like, what would Obi-Wan do?
I love it.
It's kind of my inner spiritual mystic is sort of like Obi-Wan. I still like to do it. I mean, these days I'm a dancer. So after I had kids, I quit martial arts and been doing dancing for the past 30 years.
Right.
Lots of different styles, but I still like to get in the boxing ring on occasion. I love
That's
a boxing
fun.
workout. I wouldn't get in the ring. I wouldn't get in the ring with me. It's really, yeah, something happens in there.
I love it.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I have little Yodas around my room. I have one in like my crystal. It's like the only
Oh
non-crystal
my
thing that's in
God.
one of my
Yeah.
crystal, I don't know what you would call it, but like crystal box type thing, shadow box. It's like a shadow box up on the wall. But yeah, I love Yoda. Yoda. I grew up like, in the 80s. So for me, Yoda was a big one.
Yeah, of
It's like,
course. Totally.
but very cool. So, I do want to kind of ask you about either a psychic reading or a mediumship experience that you had. And it doesn't have to necessarily be with somebody else that you're reading, but have you had an experience where it was really like just kind of a funny, kind of quirky experience where you were like, well, that was interesting? Is there anything that stands out in your mind that,
Yeah, I did. I do have one. Just so I thought of a couple, but this is the one that's coming to mind. So it's probably like it's quite some time ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago. And I had this couple come in. They wanted a mediumship session. I always say I'm not a medium, but mediumship happens. It's
hmm,
kind of my thing there. They had just lost a friend, and they were really looking for evidential mediumship. They really wanted like proof this was going on, and I was like, I don't always get that, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to do my best. And they said, what's his name? And the name Charlie came to me, and I'm like, his name is Charlie, and that was right. And the guy, it was the guy's the male of the couple's friend, and he was super distraught about this death. And he said he was like, I need to know it's real. And I had this plant in my room, and the plant started shaking. It was shaking so much that like leaves were falling off of it.
oh, geez.
And then some it was like Charlie went around the room and knocked things over. Like this picture fell off the wall, and then the blind on the window rolled up, and then like the door slammed, and then it was like on each wall something happened, and we were all just like, oh my, like I didn't know what to say. That nothing like that. Well, I've had a few things like that where that weird happened to me, but then the lights were flickering on and off. Like it was nuts. It was like the full on like everything, like room exploding. And I was like, and they were like, okay. And the guy was like, I guess it's real. It was so funny. I
Which
just
is like kind of perfect because I feel like the some people that are super closed off and stubborn, like that's what they need are like those crazy intense moments. It's just,
Charlie really
oh
brought
my
it. Thank you, Charlie. Charlie really brought it
God. I love that though. I love that it wasn't just one thing. It was just like boom, boom, boom. Like
all
you
the way around. It was like you could
like,
see like
okay,
he was
here you
walking around the room. Like it
go.
was all in a sequence around the room.
That's so awesome. I love
Yeah.
that. I also wanted to ask you on the other end of that too, as far as maybe an intense encounter? Because I know you've talked about your experience in the 90s. You did many, 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 like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of house clearings. So, can you maybe speak to the opposite end of that, where maybe you had like a really intense, and it doesn't have to be the house clearings, but intense encounter where maybe you had to kind of bring in some sort of backup, spiritual backup or energetic backup of maybe another human, maybe not
Yeah.
necessarily a priest, but maybe a priest. Uh,
Yeah. I've had a few I couldn't do much about. And I never did that by myself. Like I learned really quickly that it wasn't good to do house clearings alone.
okay.
Even though I started doing it in the 90s, nobody was doing it. There was no manual. I had no idea. One of my friends was like, "Can you do this?" I was like, "Sure." Like I had no idea I was getting myself into a world of trouble. There's one, there was a one that was the old um um parish house of a Catholic church where the priest lived,
Ugh.
you know? And that was placed, and then the parish rented it, like the priest wasn't living there anymore. And um that was a ghost who did not want to go. And oh man, I think that guy did a lot of really bad things. And I think there was sort of like a scandal that got many scandals that kind of got covered up by the church. Um and he that was a place where I had to get the church involved to
Oh,
come in and
geez.
clear it. It was church property. And they were like, "Oh, well, yeah, we actually know about that guy." Like, I'm not surprised you need a little help. And I just think he wasn't, um, he really thought because he was a priest, he really thought he was going to go to hell,
Oh,
So
yeah.
he did not want to go. And he'd done a lot of really, really, really bad things.
Oh, that's
So
horrible.
I know. So, that was a case where I actually I have witnessed, like a minor exorcism. I don't usually talk about that. There's some things I've experienced that I don't talk about because,
Wow.
it's intense. And that wasn't the same situation, but I have been present when there was an exorcism going on. It's not something I would ever want to repeat. But it just was part of my training, I really think. Like, you know, and shortly after that I had a conversation with a guy, and he was doing that kind of work, and he looked at me, he's like, "Lisa, this is not the path for you. You're not meant to be like battling demons and doing the dark stuff." He's like, "Get back in the light.
Yeah.
You're a healer. You're meant to do the healing work. If you stare too long in the darkness, they notice you,
Oh,
and you don't want to get on their radar. You don't want to go down that path." He's like, "This isn't for you.
yeah.
Go back to the light." And that was it. I was like, "Okay."
You're like,
I'm like,
I'm
"Okay,
good.
message heard." Like, and I just went back to teaching Reiki and
Yeah.
doing psychic development. I quit house clearing. I got really sick. I brought a spirit, it wasn't a human spirit, an entity. I brought an entity home with me that made me really sick, and um it was really hard for my children, like really haunted the house.
Hmm.
So it took me like a long time to get out of that, to gain my health back, to get rid of that spirit. And I was like, all right, I'm tapping out of this. Um I've learned everything I can learn. And um I went pretty far down that rabbit hole, but
Jeez.
I'm glad I know the things that I learned, so I can help, mostly so I can help other people not do it.
Yeah.
I always say, I took one for the team, made a lot of mistakes and learned things the hard way. So you don't have to.
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
I frame
That's
it.
very intense stuff. And when you
Yeah.
were talking about the exorcism that you had witnessed, but you weren't necessarily a part of. I know I watched, there was a documentary I watched on YouTube one time that was actually about an exorcist that had gone in. And it was one of those things that I went into kind of curious. And just watching the entire thing of how it unfolded, I was like, yeah, I mean, I feel like this is undeniable. Like this stuff, I feel like if light exists, you have to have the other side, right? So then you're going to have these other things. And I've seen some dark stuff in my life, not like that, but I've seen dark stuff in the family home where I grew up. And so
Yeah.
that was interesting. But since you mentioned the non-being form and something that you brought home, I was wondering if you could speak about just like the energetic parasites, what that is, the non-beings, and then when they do attach themselves to us, if it attaches, themselves to a person, how do those energetic psychic surgeries work type thing, kind of for the listeners, because I know a lot of people may have not even heard of psychic surgeries, like what that is and
Yeah.
what an energetic parasite is. So I was wondering if you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean they are around, and they're sort of like there's different levels of them. So there's kind of the low level ones. They're I think of them like sort of ticks, like you pull ticks, fleas off your dog. It's sort of
Yeah.
like not a big deal. You're like, oh, that little thing, we're just gonna get rid of that. We don't want that to be there, and it parasites, they suck your blood. These parasitic entities, they take your life force energy. They feed on life force energy. They feed on like negative emotions.
Mhm.
And we can get them out and about in the world, just, roaming through the world. I think you go into Walmart, you might come out with one or two. Costco, like just
Yeah.
all, just sort of being around in life. And then there are more intelligent ones that are um, a little bit more nefarious, and they happen to people who sort of begin sort of dark spiritual psychic practices like ghost hunting, like paranormal research, which is fine to do if you want to do that. I just think you need a lot of really good psychic self-defense. If you're going to, you kind of, if you go looking for trouble, you're going to find trouble.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the trouble that you find. And some people have a really strong calling for that. And that's something that I respect a lot. Um, and if you do, please get really good psychic self defense so you don't get sick like I did, and bring home some friends that you don't really want to have stick
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
So I think there's like basic energy clearing protocols, like be like learn some good psychic self defense, and I teach psychic self defense in my all my psychic classes, because I would never open up someone psychically without giving them some psychic self defense. And I think that's really about boundaries, like really setting good boundaries. Um, making sure you're clearing yourself, you're grounding yourself, your energetic protections are up. When we have that basic energy clearing hygiene, we can move about the world and not worry about it, you know? And when we don't, sometimes we can get whacked or whammied by those forces, that spirits that don't have your best interests at heart,
Yeah.
you
Which
know?
is so scary to even think about, because think about how many people are kind of walking around not realizing what's going on with them. Because I even think about, like, I know for myself, I've definitely had emotions show up out of the blue, it felt like. And then I'm like, well, why am I feeling this way? Why am I suddenly feeling like super down or super angry or super drained or super. So
Mm-hmm.
I imagine it's the same for the people that have some sort of energy vampire kind of attached to them type thing, or not energy vampire, but the parasite, human parasite, the energy parasite thing. So
Yeah, if you don't know, it's hard to defend against something if you don't know about
yeah,
it. And some
yeah,
people I think are really kind of impervious to these. They just things don't seem to bother them, and they have like energy feels like a tank, and they just can roam around and do all kinds of crazy things. And but sensitive people, empaths, psychics, intuitives are a little more susceptible to that kind of thing. And then we just really want to make sure we don't invite them. So
yeah,
no Ouija board. No,
yeah,
don't take the Ouija board to the abandoned mental hospital and play around with it. And if you do that, you're gonna come home with some friends,
yeah.
some not very friendly friends.
When I was going to say, along that same vein of things, one that I think about that I wasn't too smart about in the beginning is I used to love going thrift shopping, and I'd go to these different thrift shops and antique shops, and I'd get stuff and bring stuff home, and I didn't cleanse them the way that I need to. And I actually had a couple, that was a joke with my family. My husband and my oldest would tell me not to bring home friends because we had a couple experiences in the house where I was like, okay, like I got to be a little smarter about the stuff that I bring in. And
I mean, I love thrifting, and God, I love the idea of recycling stuff, but I can't do it because, especially other people's clothes, I can
yeah.
always feel the person that was in them before me.
Mhm.
And I'm like, nope, it's not gonna antiques. Like, I think I love antiques, and I have quite a few of them, but I'm just careful,
Yeah.
and sometimes uneasy spirits can get attached to objects, furniture.
Yeah.
One of my house clearing clients from back in the day bought an antique desk, and then all of a sudden her house was haunted. And there was this sad woman who was like writing, would write love letters at this desk, and we had to clear it because she came with the desk.
Yeah.
You know,
So sad.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
So, tip for all of you out there, make sure you cleanse stuff before you come in and bring it
Yeah,
into your house. But
that's
also,
right.
the other thing is if you're going to be donating your clothes, wash and cleanse your clothes so that you're not sending your energy out with the clothes too, as
That's
best as you
great.
can.
That's a
Uh,
really good tip.
yeah. So, I wanted to ask you, something that came to mind when I was thinking about setting this up to interview you and everything. I have somebody in my life, a family member, that I've talked to about intuition, psychic abilities, because I'm now finding out more and more. And I don't understand how at 45, I'm now finding out that one of my aunts had a lot of the similar things that I've had through my life. And I'm like, I'm just now finding out. And she's been passed, quite some time. But, anyways, one of my family members has been a little closed off about intuition and psychic abilities and whatnot. And I understand that, we are all given free will, right? We're able to make the decision of how we want to move forward with things, what we want to experience in life, and so forth. And then I know you've talked about how some of us will shut down our psychic abilities when we experience trauma. I think that's what happened with me early on, and that's why I didn't have my awakening or reawakening until later in life. But this person in my life, when I've talked to them about it, he's been scared not of what he's going to see, not of like a ghost or anything like that, but he's nervous because he's like, I don't want to know the bad news. And for me, anytime I've like heard him say that, I'm like, yeah, but if there's a way for you to intuitively move through life with the feeling of support, like, so I'm just curious, do you have any kind of words of encouragement, I guess is what I'm looking for someone that may be a little nervous or have some concern with what they might feel or have come through that they're worried it's going to be all bad news?
Yeah, and I think fear is such a great question. I think fear is really an important part of the conversation. So it's always the topic that I start with in my psychic development classes, like the first thing we're going to do is talk about what you're afraid of. Talk about what fears you have, what might be, because those fears, if we leave them hanging out, will block us and prevent us. And you made a really good point that so many of us have PTSD around our psychic experiences from when we were kids. So sometimes we have a huge number of people. Like, I'm always blown away by it. So I think sometimes we have to clean up some of our past trauma. And I don't know, I think like whatever you're going to see psychically is never as bad as what you see on the 6 o'clock news. If you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like, it's really like whatever we humans do to each other is 100 times worse than anything I've seen in spirit, and I've seen some gnarly stuff, but it doesn't come anywhere close to what we see on the news. If you can
Yeah.
handle the news, then you can handle what you're going to see psychically. But I think also getting some basic skills, knowing how to turn it on and off can be very helpful. I think there's a feeling of fear of being out of control, that is really scary to people. But when you learn how to control it, learn how to, um, filter it, shut it down when you want a good night's sleep, or just sort of have your fingertips on the controls, then it's way less scary. For me, the more I know about, the more I learned and the more knowledge I had, the less fear I had.
Yeah.
So that was also kind of how and why I dove into studying and learning as much as I could, because it just made me feel safer and in control with my gifts. And I also think the payoff is so powerful. Like you said, that so many of us can and should and do use our intuition to help us navigate the tricky bits of our life, right?
Yeah.
So life is tricky and challenging a lot, and we're in a definitely challenging time in human history that's like just crazy out there in the world right now. So how amazing is it to have our intuition, to have our spirit guides, to have our own connection with our higher self and our soul guide us, help us navigate through these tricky times. To me, that's the real reason why we want to do this. That, and so we can help other people, because we're always, with our gifts, it's in service to ourselves and helping us find our path, but also to be in service to humanity. And there are times when you open your mouth and your guides speak through you and say exactly what that person needs to hear in the moment. And that's beautiful. So I think the pros really outweigh the cons. It's a skill like any other skill. So I mean, you could create a lot of chaos if you got in a car and didn't know how to drive. You know what I mean? And so learning and practicing and getting control of it it's really the solution to that, I think.
Yeah. And two things you said. One, just about kind of the state of the world today. Because I do absolutely see how having the gifts open could really help you, not just spiritually, but just help you feel that sense of comfort too, moving forward on your path. Like what I was saying, having that guidance kind of, having that clarity and guidance. But then also, it does to me, it does eliminate that fear part. Because I feel like, and maybe this has to do with just with my growth path too and my spiritual journey, but I feel like since having my shift in 2019, I feel like being connected, I have so much less fear than what I did before.
Yeah.
And so to me, with how crazy things are today and so many people that seem so nervous about the unknowns, so nervous about what's going on around the world, so nervous about what's going on in America, so nervous about, the list goes on and on. I feel like when you have that piece, that connection piece with source, and you have that connection piece with spirit, and you're able to be able to receive from your guides and so forth, there's
Yeah.
a sense of comfort and security there where you don't really have that. You still don't want to see things, obviously, but you have more of a peaceful feeling going into it as
I
far
think
as
so.
worldly, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a tricky time. We're in the time of the deconstruction,
Yes.
so things are deconstructing around us. We, as humans, we don't like that. It feels
Hmm.
terrible. It's scary. I also think so many of us have chosen to be here to help,
Yeah.
to be a part of um, to help humanity go through this time to shift our own frequency. And it doesn't mean that life on the ground is easy, because it's really not. But I think those of us that are tuned more into our own souls, into our life purpose, into our spirit guides, get a little. I saw this happen a lot in the pandemic, because it just interrupted the the day-to-day pattern we were all in.
Yeah.
People just got super intuitive and like, I'm gonna quit my job and move to Vermont and be a goat farmer.
I love that.
Like, I know
Sign
it
me up.
sounds so fun, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that, that's like a really it kind of gave us permission to get off kind of this automatic hamster wheel that we
Hmm.
were all on, and let intuition guide us. And I
Yeah.
think the same can be true for now.
Yeah.
There's always change. There's always opportunity and change. So as scary
Yes.
as it is that the world's falling apart, or, things seem like they're breaking down so fast at the moment, there's also incredible opportunity in, whether you run a business or you're here to help other people. If we can keep our wits about us and follow that intuition, there's some real beautiful opportunities that I think will come up as well.
Absolutely. And when you were talking, I was seeing, when you were talking about the deconstruction, I always think of right now, the tower card in
Mm-hmm.
tarot.
100%.
I think
That's
of
what it is.
what comes next after the tower card, right? So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of beauty to come from this. And even though for a lot of people it could be scary right now, what's going on because of the reality being shaken up for how they've grown up and what they've known to be their sense of space and security of reality. I think it's just going to be beautiful of like once we kind of get into that new piece of where we're heading right now.
Right. I mean, that's the potential, that after the deconstruction, like, that we get an upgrade,
Yeah.
that we create a world that has even more beauty, harmony, and order than we had before. That's the process of evolution. And that's what's on our ticket, I think. So we just have to get through this rocky time where things are deconstructing.
Yes. So, I would like to kind of jump back a little bit, but the very beginning of the conversation, when we had talked about one of your new books that's going to be released soon, I would love it if you could talk a little bit about healers and the inner child work and how this shows up for many people and they don't even realize it, because I know I didn't really realize what a lot of my setbacks were with business until I started talking to you and about different archetypes and different things that were coming up. And I'm like, oh, like this is definitely something that has followed me through life and especially in business. So I'd love it if you could share a little bit about that and then also maybe share a few of the archetypes just to kind of give people an idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always say the answer is your inner child. Whatever's going on in your life, whatever breakdown you're in the middle of. And I've been doing inner child work every day for 25 years. And a lot of it is around my business because the next thing I'm about to do in my business always just scares the crap out of my inner child. So write a book or be on a start a podcast or teach on the Shift Network. Oh, I just got a gig teaching at Omega. That just happened today.
Yay.
Yeah. So, and get on the stage with in this huge workshop. And by the way, Greg Braden's there. You're on the stage with Greg
I
Braden.
did not know that.
Oh my God, that
I just
happened in
got so
May.
excited.
That already happened. It happened in May.
I did not hear that he was there.
Oh my God, totally nuts. Yep.
That's
Yep.
awesome.
I know. I met a lot of really famous people that were part of my, and I was like so starstruck. But that's where I met Suzanne Giesman in that same expo conference that I was at. But those things, like my higher self is like, yeah, and my inner child's like, don't make me do that hard, scary thing,
Yeah.
And I think for me, if I wasn't doing inner child work every day, I would be sabotaging myself and procrastinating and, letting my inner critic get the best, get the best of me because, our inner children don't like to come out of the comfort zone. They like the familiar. They like the known thing. They like, what, well, just sit on the couch and watch Netflix and chill with a cat.
Yeah.
And your soul's like, you can do that for a little while, but really, like, you're here to get busy. Like, let's do something. Let's grow. Let's evolve. Let's create. Let's heal. Like, and that when we're doing it right, we're just really living on the cutting edge of our soul's intuition, of our soul's expansion and evolution. And that means we're out of our comfort zone a lot, or we're invited to get out of our comfort zone a lot. And whether we do or not depends on how much inner child work I'm doing. If my inner child is feeling safe and secure and like I've got her, then she's like, okay, we'll do that. We'll teach at Omega. Okay, we'll do that. The next thing that's new, and that's I think what it all comes down to. But we all have sort of this inner conversation going on, usually in our subconscious, right? That is your inner critic telling you all the ways you're not good enough. Like, you're not good enough. And your inner child's like, I know, I'm terrible. Like, we just, and it's like a little tennis match that's going on inside of our head all the time.
Yeah.
When we learn how to do inner child work, we can step in, we cultivate the internal loving parent, we get between those two, and we tell the inner critic to calm down. Like, you can't speak to my friend Lisa that way. And we comfort the inner child. So we're learning to reparent. It's not reparenting our children, it's reparenting ourselves. So we can heal some of the things that maybe didn't go right in our own childhood, and also do what we came here to do.
Yeah. Which I love because, I think for maybe many of us growing up in the 80s, I think there was a different style of parenting back then too. And so I think even if people didn't come from a trauma background as far as, the abuse or alcoholic parents or, whatever, there was still a different style of parenting back then. And I think that a lot of us have kind of carried with us certain things. And I think it's very helpful what you're teaching, the inner child stuff, because it does follow you into the other parts of your life too, like the business part. And like I was saying, a little while ago, I didn't know or didn't recognize the signs of certain things that I was doing where I was giving a lot of myself away because that for me is something that's a thread. But yeah, so that was very interesting to me. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is something I need to work on. I'm constantly trying to make up for things because, this, and this. So it definitely could help you for those listeners out there to look into the inner child work, which Lisa does have a course as well, inner child. And what's the name of the actual course, Lisa? Your inner.
Healing your inner child. I'll be coming up. It's actually, I'm going to be teaching one on the Shift Network in
Oh, nice.
Art of Sacred Reparenting in February. I'll be teaching
Oh,
that one too.
awesome. Yay.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Okay, cool. And then I did want to kind of shift things a little bit. I wanted to ask you, because out of all of your years of experience with the psychic work, but then also the mediumship stuff, I'm curious if you've had one time in particular, or even more than once, but just something that has popped up for you where it really just like shook your reality of what you thought to be true. And you're like, well, that's interesting. That's different for me now. Did you have any sort of like mind-bending, reality-shifting
Yeah.
experience?
Yeah. It wasn't when I was doing a reading though. It was when I was walking my dog on the beach, and it happened not too long ago, like maybe a year or two ago.
Oh, wow.
So I live in Rhode Island. I was walking my dog on the beach, which I do almost every day. And I had this feeling of, I saw this woman, and it's sort of like, it was one of those psychic visions where I was pretty sure it was a psychic vision, but I was also like, is that a person over there? Like sometimes I can't tell. And this woman came, and she looked like she was like in her late 70s or early 80s. And I was like, well, she looks really familiar. And I realized it was me. It was me from the
Mm,
future. It was like
mm,
my future self. And she had that, and then I was like, okay, this is definitely a psychic thing. And she was like giving me these messages. She's like, it's gonna be okay. Everything's really good. Like, look at where you are. And she was like, these things have happened. And I was like, oh my God. And she's like, yeah, go back in time and tell your 20-year-old self it's gonna be okay. And I turned around, and I had this memory of myself walking on the beach in my parents' house. Um, they lived in Maine at the time, but I was walking on a beach and having this sort of like real crisis of faith, and didn't know what to do, real crossroads in my life. And
mm.
I was trying to figure out what the heck to go on. And I had the vision of my future self, that who is me now at 60 years old, talking to my 20-year-old. And I had this, and that conversation I had back then sort of changed what I just was going to do. It was
Wow.
this total time loop where I felt like my 80-year-old self, my 60-year-old self, and my 20-year-old self were all connected in
Mhm.
this like time loop. And that really happened, you know, that I needed that moment. It's like Back to the Future. I needed
Yeah.
that moment to go back in time to give myself the message, and that was great. That's probably the coolest, one of the more mystical things that have really blown my mind.
That is a very cool experience. I'm definitely going to have to share that with my husband because he isn't super woo, but he's open to the woo, if that makes sense. But one thing that he and I have always discussed is he believes in like how you could have different like things going on at the same time, different versions of yourself.
Yeah.
And I shared with him, I recently had a read with somebody from our class, and what they were pulling through and how they described it, I'm almost positive it was a different version of myself because the person that they were pulling through that had passed, I think was another version of myself because the accident, everything was identical to an accident I was in with my father when I was younger. And it was so interesting. And I shared it with my husband, and he's like, I think that's just another version of you, like da 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 da. But anyway,
Yeah.
so when you say that, I'm like, oh, that's so interesting because that's kind of always been his
A little
thought.
time travel. It was like a
Yeah.
little ripple in the time
Yeah, so interesting. I love
continuum.
that. I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that. And I love that that happened. Like it was something that was more recent that kind of like shifted things. So I
Yep.
love when stuff like that happens too, when we have those little moments. Um, so I did along that same line of things. I do want to ask you if you're willing to share. But I know that I've shared with you some experiences before about the portal stuff that I've experienced. I'm curious if you'd be willing to potentially share just your thoughts or feelings around those outside the earth, other beings, and just what your thoughts are, and if you've had any experiences.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely have. And I was skeptical about this for quite a long time. Like other people were, it's one of those things like, I think it's real. I'm not sure. I want to believe, you know, and, and then it just had so many experiences stack up with, with clients that have had abduction situations and, going out to Sedona. I lead a retreat to Sedona with my friend Jane every year. We're going out there again in June of 2026, and like looking up into the sky with night vision goggles, and you can see them all flying around up there and doing crazy stuff. And I know they're real. I don't know. So it's hard for me to know, like, really, like, are they good? Are they bad? What are they doing? I think there's some good, there's some bad, there's some that are here to support us, and there's some that are more nefarious, you know. And I think that we're disclosure, they talk about disclosure as kind of a thing in the UFO community. I think that's happening. I don't think
Mhm.
it's sort of a one and done, but I think it's kind of like an ongoing process. The military's like, look at all these pictures of the UAPs. We don't know what they are. Um, and I'm so curious to see what will happen. I do think that we need to be, practice discernment, which we do when whatever we're doing psychic work,
Mhm.
because we need to feel like there are benevolent beings that are there to assist the evolution of humanity, and there are some in the middle that are neutral, and there's some that I think are harmful. um we need to like hold on to our discernment and sort of sort out, which are which. It's just the same with people. It's
Yeah.
just the same with
Yeah.
non-physical beings, entities. I think we
Yeah.
can they can all go in that same category. So we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. We want to keep our discernment.
Yeah. Which I think is so smart to say because I think just kind of, and this is just my feeling is all, but I feel like we're really going to have stuff really be rattled in the next couple months, few months, whatever. And I
Yeah.
think that we're going to have to be very careful with what's being fed to us through the media and
Yep.
through other. And I think that, like you said about the discernment piece, that's going to be so important. And that's interesting because it's also something that I've had talks with certain people about because I have people in my life that I love very much, but they believe everything that's in the news and the media. And it's very difficult because, you know, that's where that intuitive piece that we talked about early on, having your gifts kind of open will really support you too as things unfold, is being able to then tap in and then know and understand, but also have that, like you said, the discernment piece. So I love that you brought that up and shared that.
Yeah,
Um,
don't let go of your discernment, especially moving forward. We're going to need that more than ever.
yes, yes, absolutely. I did want to ask you because we talk about all things conscious consumption on here, something that just in my own experience through the years, I'm curious what your thoughts are. But do you have any foods, drinks, or environment factors that in your mind are kind of best to stay away from in order to keep your channel clear or practice good energetic hygiene?
Yeah, I think it's that's such a beautiful question, because I think one of the most important things we can do to keep our vibe high is live clean, clean eating, minimize chemicals, minimize toxins. I would have a really super good water filter, so you're having really super clean water. And avoid highly processed foods, chemical foods, GMO foods. And I mean, some people, the rest I think is constitutional. Like everyone has a different body and a different constitution. Some people really do great with vegan. I would just drop dead in about a week if I did that. I wish I could. I mean, I like it aligns with my spiritual values, but I'm just, my body can't handle it. So I do more like paleo, like I'm more on keto, paleo on the other side of that. But I think that's not one size fits all, that there's kind of our individual constitutions, what we need. But no matter what you're eating, it should be super clean,
Yeah.
minimizing toxins in your environment, like Wi-Fi, turn the Wi-Fi off at night. or wear an EMF shield if you can't do that, or you live in a place where if you live in an apartment building in the middle of the city, you're like living in Wi-Fi soup.
Yeah.
And that's when having a personal Wi-Fi shield is really good. I have one on my phone. That's like, this is my phone, and it's like a
Oh, nice.
Wi-Fi
Yeah. The cards, I've seen
because
those. Yeah.
yeah, because we just carry our phones around and sleep with them next to our heads and all these crazy things that we do. So I think that's super important. And then I think that meditation, clean living, like meditate, get good sleep, rest, relax. Spiritual practice is very important.
Yeah.
You live a clean, nice, clean, healthy lifestyle. And if you don't, it's going to really impede your if you eat crappy chemical laden food, if you do a lot of recreational drugs or drink a lot, um, like don't get any sleep, are super stressed out, like all those things. It's not rocket science. It's easy to see how those things impact us, but they really do,
Yep.
you know? So I think like all those self-care, clean living things really, really help a lot.
Thank you. I wanted to, because when you were talking about the food, it made me think of it too. I'm kind of a weirdo and I have a couple apps on my phone, but I've also gone into the grocery store with my pendulum checking food ingredients. Um,
Yeah.
but for those that may not be aware of the app, there's an app out there. I think it's French owned, but it's Yucca. It's like Yuka, I believe is how it's spelled. Excellent app. You could scan things at the grocery store. I will tell you, folks, they are very sneaky with how they put ingredients in, how things are labeled, the marketing that they do on this stuff that you would think that are the healthier choices. And I'm not going to call out any brands, but it's just really interesting. And I'm very picky because, I have a family. I try to take care of them, make sure that they're fed well and everything. So check those apps out, but that one that I shared is one way. And then also you could use your pendulum, which I have used before. I've been standing on the aisle using my pendulum and had a lady come by and walk by and kind of look at me like, what are you doing? But yeah, so that's also a way that you could do. There's also the lean test. I think that helps, and the muscle test too. If you're not familiar with that, go back to, I think it was like 2 episodes back, I had talked about how to do those. And then one other thing I want to share about of what you were discussing and kind of sharing there is when you brought up the alcohol. So for me, this was an area where I had kind of dabbled in and then was still finding myself, even after my spiritual shift, I had gone some time without drinking and then had started drinking again, having a drink in the evening time with my husband. And it was like it became a nightly thing. And then I was given a very clear message from spirit that if I wanted to progress and if I want to grow my connection stronger, that for me, and I'm not saying this is for everyone, but for me, that I need to like kind of cut it out. And so that was kind of where I drew. I was like, okay, I'm done. And so then I stopped. And so when I had stopped drinking, it was last year, the new moon in November. And I've had, 2 times this year or whatever that I did have a drink. And then it was like each time I was like, yeah, no, don't need to. But anyways, I wanted to point that out because I think that what you said, like the constitution piece, like our bodies are different. And in the spiritual community, there's a lot of people that will kind of look down to you if you eat meat. And I have also been on both ends of the spectrum there. I had started eating meat again when I got pregnant with my youngest. But I think you have to listen to your body. So again, that's where that discernment piece that Lisa was talking about comes in. Listen to your body and block out all the noise because people are always going to have an opinion. But you know best. If you go inward, you'll know best. But yeah, so thank you for sharing that, Lisa. I wanted to ask one more thing, and then I have a fun little kind of vote game, if you will. But something that came up recently, and I had shared this with you, I think it was like a couple classes ago or whatever, but I had a retreat a couple weekends ago. Most intense and most magical time altogether. But I really had this one experience that I felt like it was something out of like a Snow White like movie. I went outside with my mom and my girlfriend, and we were collecting things for the sound bath that I was going to be doing that evening. And I'm standing at the top of the hill where the house was and everything. And at the bottom of the hill, I saw a female deer, and then I saw a little doe. And I was like, oh, and I start talking to her. And she locked eyes with me and she started to walk up the hill. And at first, I had like a moment where at first I got a little nervous. I'm like, that doesn't seem normal. Like she's coming right to me. Well, it got to the point where she literally came all the way up. And I know that if I would have like stuck my hand out, I could have had her like come right into my hand. But I had this like crazy, like it made me kind of emotional too. But I had this crazy like connection with her. And I wanted to ask you about that because I do feel that along our paths, because I know for me personally, and maybe this is just because of me being like an animal lover and how I am with animals, but I know that even when I'm going through like different things in my life, like I'll connect with the animals out and outside, like on my walks or whatever. Like I'll have the crows like, squawking at me, talking, and I'll talk back and stuff and probably look like a damn crazy person half the time. But anyway, so I'm curious like what your thoughts are on, when we have these human to animal, wild animal connections that just seems so like surreal. Like it seems so crazy. I was like, I cannot believe there's a deer and her little baby. Like literally, I could touch her head. Like it was just crazy. And I don't know if I posted the picture in the group, but I'll do it if I haven't. But anyway, so I was curious what your thoughts were on that when we have these types of connections like that.
Yeah, I that's such a beautiful story, Rena. It's so sweet. It's so beautiful. And the deer is all about the heart. Male deers, they call hearts. When you deers like heart energy, when you look in the eyes of the deer, you see all the way into their hearts, you know. So it's a heart opening animal. That's a power animal that's about the heart. And, I think like, asking yourself, well, what's the message for you? Was it confirmation? Is it a message? There's some deep, really, really personal. And sometimes at times when I was at choice points in my life, I've had really intense experiences with animals too.
Mm.
Really like outside the ordinary. I was driving in the car with my kids. They were in the car seats in the back in my minivan, and a cardinal flew through into the open window and out the driver's
Oh
window
my
and
God.
dropped a feather in my lap.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was like, like I was like, like, what happened? And I just think sometimes we have these like really mystical, magical things that sort of defy logic, or you know, I have a hawk thing, and I went outside of I have a Jeep with a luggage rack on the top, and I don't know, it was probably 6 months ago. I went out there and there was a hawk sitting on the top of my Jeep.
Oh my God. I love
Like,
that.
and it was like, it was giving me the like, these things are huge, by the way. I mean, it was a red tail. It was like, 3 feet tall. I was like, you know, and I did really like there was something like, okay, what is it? Something really intense and significance happening that I really, 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 really need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And I think that was the same moment for you. Like, what did you really need to pay attention to?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that too,
so
Lisa.
cool. Love
So
this
I
stuff.
have a fun little vote game that I want to do with you. One of these that I'm going to mention, I know that you and I are favoriting the show both because you and I have talked about it before, but I wanted you to rate your favorite psychic show and psychic movies. And I thought we could do, so I have five that I chose, and then I'll kind of explain each one in case there's one that maybe you don't know. But based off of your favorite in general, and then based off of entertainment and accuracy, because I think that there's a lot of crazy stuff in Hollywood. And so
Totally.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on these five. So the very first one is Medium. It was an NBC show, and that one was actually I believe, based on a true actual person that did the
Yep.
work. And I can't remember if did she work for the federal bureau or
FBI.
was it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I love that show. I thought it was great. I thought I mean, they always Hollywooded up it a little bit,
Yeah.
but a really great take on what forensic psychic work is all about. So
Okay.
I give it a thumbs up.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So we have medium. And then Ghost Whisperer with Jennifer Love Hewitt, which who doesn't love Jennifer Love
Oh my
Hewitt?
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And such an adorable show too. And it was on for quite a few seasons too, I think. And I know you can watch it on Hulu now because I just started watching it again. But but
I'm gonna give the first 3 seasons a massive thumbs up because their psychic that they had on staff as their advisor was James Van Prague.
okay.
And he is a real legit psychic, and they got it really right. Um,
Nice.
especially like the sort of crossing over people, like what's it like to cross over people? If you really
Mhm.
want to know, watch that show. They got it right. I think after a couple seasons in,
Yeah.
they lost the plot and went totally Hollywooded out. But I give the first 3 seasons 2 solid thumbs up.
Very cool. Okay. And then this next one, I'm going to explain why I chose it, but Charmed, which was the one that was on the WB, it was with the three sisters. And the reason I chose this one was because there was one character in particular, one of the sisters, her name was Phoebe. She was played by Alyssa Milano. But she had the gift of premonition. And so she would just stop and have like these very, like, I'm like, I feel like who has those like intense, like so intense, like vivid premonitions? But it was crazy and cool to watch growing up and kind of seeing the show. But anyway, so I'm curious about that one too, what your thoughts are on that one.
I give it a 10 out of 10 for entertainment value and a 0 out of
Yeah.
accuracy on the psychic.
Yeah, I'm like, who's
Like
like,
it's so fun, you know. If only we could conjure a demon and they'd be that handsome and love it, you know, like
right? Like cool.
that hot.
Oh my gosh. I almost had a crush on him.
The real thing, no good.
Yeah,
So yeah, super fun, super entertaining, but not really any spiritual any real spiritual wisdom there now.
perfect. And then my personal favorite movie of all time, Practical Magic. I even have one of my intuitive card readings, Midnight Margaritas, that's named after the Midnight Margaritas truth serum scene in the movie. But Practical Magic has two characters, Jillian and Sally Owens, and they're sisters. And the reason I chose this one is because of the actual psychic communication, if you will, between the two sisters, the bond that they have, because there's, scenes where one's really going through this tough time and the other one knows and kind of feels it and, comes to visit her during this time. And then there's another point in the movie where you see that the one sister's outside and she knows that her sister Jillian's calling and she goes running in and she picks up the phone and she knows that she's in danger. So I want you to kind of speak on that too, as far as the sister psychic connection mainly.
Also, one of my favorites. Can't wait for the reboot. It's
I know,
coming.
me too.
I
I can't
know.
wait.
Magic 2. It's so
Yes.
coming up. Um, and I think it's fun. They say that it takes place in Maine, but I think it was really filmed somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. But um, I think that part of it is totally right. Like there's some really beautiful truth in there about psychic stuff and about magic.
Mhm.
But of course they go a little over, I don't think you
Yeah.
can really bring back the dead with magic. And that gets them in a whole lot of trouble, but it is a totally adorable. And I love her like little spell that she casts, about the man she wants who rides the pony backwards,
Yeah.
and
With the
yeah,
star
with
and
the
the one with
star. I
the
mean,
green eye.
they're so cute. So yes, great. And there was some truth in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna give it like 50% truth and 50% just adorable story.
Love it. Okay. And then the last one, which I was trying to remember because it's been a while since I've watched it. I was trying to remember all the details of it. But The Sixth Sense with Bruce Willis. And that was a movie that had the little boy who could see those that had passed. And Bruce
I see
Willis's,
dead people.
yeah, and Bruce Willis's character, I believe was a detective, right? If I remember
He was
correctly,
a therapist.
or a therapist, that's what it was. He was a therapist. But the entire movie, you're watching the interaction between the boy and Bruce Willis's character, and it's not until the very end that they kind of shake it up for you, and you're like,
Plot
oh,
twist. Don't give away the plot twist.
yeah, I
Plot
won't.
twist. It's a really, really accurate depiction of what my childhood was like.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
maybe a little more scared. I don't remember being that scared. That poor child was terrified. I like that movie because I know so many people are terrified. You know, they really are. I think the depiction of the ghosts, of the spirits, of the prop. I give it an A+, 10 out of 10, and accurate on the accuracy meter for sure.
Awesome. Very
Yeah.
cool. So out of this,
M Night Shyamalan did that movie, and they just shut down my town in Rhode Island over the summer because he's filming another movie
wow.
called another ghost story called Remains
Oh,
with
interesting.
Jake
Okay.
Gyllenhaal. They closed my favorite coffee shop.
Oh,
I can't wait to see that movie because it's going to be all over my. It was like filmed all over my town.
nice. I love that they're getting outside of Hollywood to do filming right now, which I
Yeah.
know it's because Hollywood's so darn expensive to film. But anyways, very cool. So out of those five, do you have a absolute favorite go-to?
Um, I would say, I mean, just for fun, like comfort, I practical magic is, and probably the Ghost Whisperer, things that I watch,
Yeah.
on repeat. Um, I thought about it was just Halloween. I thought about watching The Sixth Sense again. I'm like, I don't want to be that scared, so I didn't watch it, but it is so good.
Yeah. I know
Yeah,
it's been so long. I'm like, I might have to go and watch that one again because there are parts that I definitely don't remember.
it's terrifying.
But
Just prep yourself. It's
yeah.
terrifying.
Well, very cool. Well, thank you so much, Lisa. So before we go, first of all, I want to thank you for being here. And I am truly, truly grateful. And I'm just so excited to have you. First of all, I didn't share this with anyone, but Lisa's my very first interview. So I was so nervous. And I should have had my cup of tea before starting because I was like shaking. But anyways, thank you, Lisa. And I also wanted to give you a chance to just, if you can, just share a little bit about where people could find you on your podcast platform, and then about how they could find your teachings, because I absolutely love and I will promote all day long. Her psychic training class is phenomenal, and just how it brings people together in that community piece.
Mm.
And then the other classes and the offerings that she has too are so gorgeous and beautiful. So if you wanted to share a little bit, Lisa, where people can find you.
Yeah, thank you. You can find me on my website, lisacampion.com. And I teach psychic Reiki, psychic development from beginner, intermediate, advanced, to pro level classes. And stop by and visit. I have a lot of free resources and also have a YouTube channel that also has a lot of free resources if you're interested in that. And my podcast is called The Miracle of Healing, and you can really find it anywhere. Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, all the usual, you know, podcast places you can find it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you, Lisa. And
Thank you
thank
so
you,
much for
everyone.
thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you. I want to get into a couple events, or I should say one event and an offering as well. And I want to share with you guys because I'm really, really excited about this. And I really think that once you listen to it, you're going to be really excited about it too. But the Reiki class, which is it includes the Awakening Airwaves podcasters. But the Reiki class has a very special 3-day event coming up. It is a masterclass weekend. It's in November. It's the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. It's a 3-day event that allows you the opportunity to take 9 classes. This is a huge event. It's very exciting. There's lots of wonderful goodies and good information in there. So I highly recommend that you check it out. So use the link in the show notes. There is also a link in my bio if you go to my Instagram, Soleil, it's Soleil, the number 2, moon. So thank you. I hope to see you guys there. I want to also share something else now. So I have an offering on my website, uh, and it's I will just say it's a fun, intuitive card reading opportunity to do this session with me. Um, I really enjoy doing it with others, and I'm going to explain why here. So I have a very playful card reading that I am offering right now. It's a practical magic theme reading. If you know the movie Practical Magic, it was a cult classic in the 90s. I want to say like 1995, maybe 1996 that it came out, but it's been definitely a hot minute since it came out, right? Um, the movie was amazing, and I've always loved the movie. It's literally like one of my favorite movies. And so when I was kind of building my different card readings, there was one in particular. I wanted to have one that was kind of playful, but had a lot of meaning to it, but also helped kind of tune into our own magic that we have within ourselves. Your playful mystical reading that's really designed to stir your cauldron and shake your shadows and toast your magic is being offered at 20% off for conscious consumption listeners right now. And you could use code CC Midnight Margaritas at checkout. 3-day weekend event, Reiki class, masterclass weekend, 13 hours of training, 9 classes spread out over Friday through Sunday. And again, for $44, you can't beat that. So sign up now, gives you guys the opportunity to join live or watch the replay. Either way, it's amazing. So sign up. And then again, use that code that I offered for Midnight Margaritas if you guys are interested, because it really is a fun reading to do. And I really enjoy sharing it with others.